What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. I'm Anthony. He is John, and this show, as always, is brought to you in part by Foco, the fans' only company. Go to foco.com. Check out all the exclusive Bengals merch you can get there: bobbleheads, shirts, shoes, I think watches, all kinds of different stuff. So go over there, check out foco.com and all the Bengals stuff there. Tell them we sent you. And, of course, this is part of the Believe in Cincy podcast channel on the Believe Network, BLEAV. So if you like this show and the others we have on our channel, then go check it out in the Believe in Cincy podcast channel through your favorite audio streamer. And, of course, if you like the live stuff that we do, you can get it on our YouTube channel by clicking the show icon underneath John's side of the screen there. Click that, do the subscribe, the bell, the thumbs up, all the things. Appreciate that. Give us a look at Cincy Jungle's Facebook page. And, of course, cincyjungle.com, as well as what John is doing, all the great work there. He was hammering away at the keyboard right before at A to Z Sports, hammering away at the keyboard right before we took the air, because we have some news, and we'll get to that in just a minute. And we have some OTA updates we're going to get to, and then we have a couple more make or break players. We had some fun doing that last week, and we've got a couple more for you. But, as I take a deep breath, John, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. For those in the YouTube audience, I am wearing yellow. Let's just get that out there. It's not a really popular color on this program, I guess, aside from the gold and the USC color palette for our boy Anthony. But I am wearing yellow. I am interested in your shirt, Anthony. I mean, I can only see the top of the logo, but I thought it was going to be a Stormtrooper helmet. That's a really cool shirt there, my guy.
Yeah, thanks, man. I got that. I think I got it one of the last times I was in Cincinnati, and it was for the in 2016. I think I got it when the Bengals, in that infamous, I think it was week 3, it was their home opener against the Broncos.
Is that the Simeon game?
The Simeon game. Yep. This is Trevor Simeon game. Yep. So the shirt brings good memories. The city brought good memories. The game, not so much, unfortunately. Yeah. But yes, that was the Trevor Simeon game. And I don't know what happened to this. There was a guy, I think he was around, along with Bengals captain and some others that, are big time fan. I don't like to use the word mascot, but they're fan symbols. And I don't know what happened to the Stormtrooper guy. I don't know what happened there, but found the shirt. It was towards the bottom of a drawer, and I'm like, hey, I should break this bad boy out. I haven't worn it for a little while, so. Still fits, so I guess that's a plus, right? A handful of years later, I guess I can count my blessings on that one. But anyway, we are here to talk some Bengals. I know May the 4th was just a few days ago, so Star Wars Day. But we're not going to talk about Star Wars. We are going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Happy to have all of you with us live, and also thank you for listening after the fact. If that's how you do it, appreciate that. But let's start off, John. Some news just hit the wire. We've got a couple of things to talk about in the news front. We'll go backwards in the order that we have it on the banner here. The Bengals sign most of their rookie class already. God bless the rookie wage scale, because the Bengals every this time of year, every year I say this, it's like, maybe a lot of people are not old enough or just don't remember all of the big first-round pick holdouts that the Bengals had before the rookie wage scale was in place. And thank God that is in place. And so now the Bengals have most of their class signed on their contracts.
Yeah, so picks 3 through 6. So you got Dylan Fairchild, Barrett Carter, Jalen Rivers, Taj Brooks, all signed, all under contract. I don't think it's a coincidence that all 4 of those players were picked after the second round. Typically, or I don't even think like third round picks or later get any sort of guaranteed salaries in their deals. Obviously, you have a signing bonus that's prorated, and that prevents guys from getting cut too early in their contracts. But first and second round players typically are able to negotiate some guaranteed money within their contracts. Some picks and players picked in that range get fully guaranteed contracts. I think the Houston Texans, their wide receiver from Iowa State, Jay Higgins, I believe is his name. He got a fully guaranteed 4-year deal, and he was picked in the second round. So that's the only part of negotiating I think that remains with these rookie contracts. But typically, it doesn't take very long. Amarius Mims last year was notably, I think he went all the way up until like July. That kind of lasted.
First and second round picks in the NFL draft have the luxury of potentially getting guaranteed money within their salaries. Not talking about signing bonuses. Everybody gets that, right? But everyone's salaries are the same in terms of the raw numbers. First and second round picks, sometimes, most of the time, get guarantees attached to them. Typically, it's like in the first couple of years. Sometimes it's all 4 years. Amarius Mims, like I think his contract, I think at least 2 of the 4 years are fully guaranteed, and he didn't sign that until July of last year. So sometimes like the quote unquote holdouts can last a couple of months, but typically they don't bleed far into training camp. There's some offset language that some teams like get really stingy about, but like you said, Anthony, when you had a working mic and not unlike me, the rookie wage scale has eliminated basically all of these troubles, right? And the timing of this is important because rookie minicamp starts tomorrow for the Bengals as of this recording. It's the only rookie minicamp, interestingly enough, that's only 1 day long. Most teams have it for 2 or 3 days. For the Bengals, it's just 1, but it's whatever, right? It's just getting out there for the first time as the entire rookie class, along with UDFAs who will show up tomorrow as well. And then they'll all join forces together sometime later this month in OTAs. So inevitable roster moves, but important nonetheless. Like you still have to get it done.
Yeah. So the other element of this, of course, is with top picks, the 5th-year option that teams can exercise. And I know that's way down the road, but obviously with the varying opinions on the Shamar Stewart pick, that's something to keep in the back of your minds, even though he hasn't been inked as of yet, and/or, that's not really a situation to think about right now. But obviously, that's something that folks are definitely curious about when the time comes, because, there is kind of a boom or bust element with him, given the lack of college production, the athletic profile, etc. And obviously, if the Bengals get to exercise that 5th-year option, that means things are working out pretty well. If not, even a hopeful contract extension before then, should things really be working out. But let's not put the cart before the horse there, and we'll see what happens. But Bengals already making headway in that regard. Now, the other thing, and I guess you could kind of call us a little bit of soothsayers here, because last week we unveiled the make or break series, and one of 2 guys that we profiled in that, it was Gino Stone. And, there's a lot for him to prove. There was a lot of late season momentum, et cetera, et cetera. Now, earlier this week, the Bengals, and it was reported that he and the Bengals agreed for him to take a pay cut down from, what was it, 6.5 million to 4.9 or something in that range.
In terms of cash, yes, like his base salary dropped from 6 million to 3 million, but then he got $1.5 million in like a signing bonus.
There you go. There you go.
So he took like $1.5 million less.
Right. So obviously there's cap implications and, things of that nature, but your thoughts on that, what it may mean. There are a couple of other domino effect things that could come of this, but just your initial reaction when you saw this coming down the pike, John.
It's no different than what Zach Moss just took with the Bengals 2 weeks ago. Obviously, Zach Moss's case is slightly different because of the situation of his injury right now, and he was thought of being a cap casualty because of that injury. But Zach Moss also accepted half of his base salary for this year, with the concession of the team giving him some guaranteed money on top of what he was already set to make in terms of like the signing bonus proration part of his contract. So Gino Stone and Zach Moss both garnered or gained security in terms of making the team, but they will make significantly less money during the season when they're getting their paychecks as a part of their P5 salary as well, like the people in the NFL call it, the base salary, if you will. And it is saving them $1.6 million in cap space, $1.6 million in cash. It's about the same when you're looking at what they're saving with Zach Moss. And it's the third pay cut that this team has offered and the player has accepted in the last 3 years, going back to Joe Mixon in 2023. Obviously, that pay cut was a lot more significant. And, you call it a pay cut, you call it a contract reworking. None of these are restructures, even though that word gets kind of thrown around a lot as a buzzword, because a restructure, again, is when you move money around, but the money is the same. The player just gets it in a quicker way. These are pay cuts in terms of the player losing out on money. And in both cases, they gained some security in terms of it is more costly now for the team to let them go. So while Gino Stone did sacrifice money along with Zach Moss, he did gain security to make the final team. It's just a matter of what this means in terms of what the team views him as a starter or just in any capacity of that going forward. But he is going to be on the 2025 team. I think this pretty much secures it.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I think we all were to believe that, particularly because the Bengals didn't really invest much in that position, namely, Xavier Watts, et cetera, that a lot of people connected with Al Golden, rightfully so. Here's the thing that's different about, you mentioned Moss, and then there's the Stone situation. The Bengals brought in two bigger backs in the mold of Moss, both in free agency and the draft. Not so much the case with Stone. So you go, okay, there is some semblance of faith there. And we talked about that last week. There is some semblance of faith there, maybe that they can get him to do some of the things that we saw in the last, 5-6 games of the year. But it's still, it's 2/3 of the season. It was not great for Gino Stone. And so this obviously was something that, it's a pay for performance type of thing. It was a sad deal with Moss because of the gruesome injury he suffered, but it's kind of the nature of the business, unfortunately. So I think while we say, okay, more secure path for Stone to make the roster, maybe that's not so much the case with Moss because of the other additions the Bengals made at that position group and in kind of a similar mold to Moss. And we'll talk about this because this will segue into our next segment pretty well, I think. But any inkling, as I read through some of the comments on various, blog posts about Gino Stone's pay cut, whether it was on Cincy Jungle or other places, some fans are saying, well, maybe this points to the Bengals, trying to squeeze every penny possible to work something out with the lingering Trey Hendrickson issue. Do you buy into that at all?
Not at all. I think whatever is going on with Trey and the Bengals, I don't think $1.6 million is getting in the way of it. I think, and we talked about this with Moss too, like the Bengals knew that they were going to target a running back in the draft. I think they wanted to target a safety, but that just didn't end up happening. But they did end up drafting a running back in a really strong class. They brought in Samaje Perine, like you said.
Yep.
I think Moss taking that pay cut, or the Bengals offering Moss that pay cut, was a sign that that's how they viewed Moss on the team. And again, like some teams, they'll restructure contracts to lower cap hits, but still pay the player the same amount of cash. The Bengals don't do that. They say, okay, this is who you are in our eyes now in the current state of affairs, regardless of what we agreed to pay you last year. This is what we're willing to pay you this year. And if you don't accept this, then in a very crude way, you can kick rocks, right? Like it's either take the pay cut or you're off the team. And that was the case with Zach Moss. They would have had to pay him an injury settlement because he hadn't officially passed a physical yet. And the guaranteed money that they gave him was kind of baked into that. And it was the same situation with Gino Stone. They used his 2024 season against him essentially and said, you're not worth the $6 million in salary that we were going to pay you. So you can either take less than that and you can give us some cap relief on top of that, but also you can take a contract that is better correlative to the player that you are now, at least with what your most recent tape says, regardless of what we think about you in this new defense with Al Golden and the fact that you are still the clear-cut starter on this team because we didn't do anything to replace you in that regard. I think that there's a greater chance that Gino Stone's pay cut leads to another safety entering the equation, not as like a guaranteed starter ahead of him, but someone that you can add to that room to potentially compete with him for snaps, and you can rotate in and out in case something does happen in the season, or if that's just what Al Golden wants to do and just have another body in there that can do different things compared to Gino Stone. You do have space now to do that. A guy like Julian Blackman comes to mind, who has the same agent as both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Rocky Arsenault represents him as well, so there's a potential connection there. I think that's more likely than, okay, Trey, we found the $1.6 million that we were missing from these negotiations from Gino Stone. I think if that is what he believes, he was probably misled, and this is just the Bengals just reevaluating their value of Gino Stone.
It's an interesting point about the another safety entering the mix. I mean, last year didn't work out great, but Stone, Bell, and Battle were all kind of rotated around in there in various packages, various looks, and so maybe the Bengals, despite not getting someone in the draft, maybe they get another veteran in there to kind of do a little bit of the same thing, maybe help you out in the slot against those bigger tight ends, that sort of thing. We will see. But we mentioned Trey Hendrickson, and in the spring workout updates, predictably, because of the contract situation, and Jermaine Pratt, which, there have been reports for the past week or so now that the Bengals are expected to release him, especially with the selection of Demetrius Knight in the second round, but still hasn't happened yet. Both of those guys are absent. Joe Burrow missed the first day, came back and showed up. And that, that came with certain fan opinions as well. But overall drama pretty low for the most part, at least comparative to last year with the Chase contract, the Higgins contract, and Hendrickson kind of all snowballing around this time and then into later months as well. So these two guys predictably absent from the workouts.
Right. And it's all has something to do with what's to come, right? Trey knows that the team wants to pay him, and that just hasn't happened yet. There's still kind of in the stalemate. I think there was a report from Ian Rappaport, who seems to be reporting very positive news with this situation whenever he does get to talk about it. He said there has been some communication since the draft, and it's been kept quiet for a very specific reason and all that stuff, right? But Trey has no incentive to show up and give the Bengals any sort of leeway until he gets what he wants. And Jermaine Pratt just knows the writing is on the wall. Like, there's no point in him showing up to practice for a team that doesn't want him on the team anymore. And the only reason why he's still on the roster is just in case they find some type of a trade partner to get something for him instead of just releasing him. But as we've talked about several times now, there's probably going to need to be one roster spot that opens up when they sign all these undrafted free agents. The roster is going to be over 90 players at that point, and he's likely going to be the odd man out. So, I don't think anyone was expecting Jermaine Pratt to be there in the first place. He's just kind of just hanging out in limbo right now. And yeah, I think Trey knew that he was going to withhold himself from all these practices until he gets what he wants. And that's the only leverage that he has.
ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, who usually provides the occasional, if not somewhat frequent, tidbits of info, insider info. I think it was a day or two ago, said that, quote, Trey Hendrickson, there's no update with defensive end Trey Hendrickson's contract situation, which is at a stalemate. My read on the situation is that Hendrickson is convicted enough to stay away from the team, having no interest in playing on his scheduled $16 million salary in 2025. Now, $16 million is, not the real, that's kind of the AAV number. That's not, there's some other numbers there, but regardless, he has no interest in playing on his current contract, according to Jeremy Fowler. Now, I don't know if that was a new update. I don't know if that was his, own personal verbiage that he added to that, but kind of telling us some things that we already knew, especially when he didn't show up to the spring workouts, like you said.
Right. It's just, there's no real update here at all. It's just, and until there's any movement in terms of getting closer to Trey's number or Trey getting closer and backing down to the Bengals number, this is just kind of going to continue to go on, which I guess you're only dealing with one player instead of two, which it was with like Chase and Higgins in recent years. But yeah, right. So, this is just the bed that they made. Like, this is something that they wanted to just kind of hold firm on, and there's still willingness to get something done. I don't think that's gone away. I don't think the Bengals are comfortable with the idea of Trey sitting out for an elongated period of time, but this is what they do. And I think they're willing to just have him not be there in the month of May if it means that he shows up in September happy.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up, and we'll get to make or break players in just a second here, but it's interesting you bring that up about the mindset of maybe that's what the team wants. I mean, nobody wants this lingering out there, but we've seen it now with Chase and Higgins, and over the course of last offseason, last year, etc. When guys are present and they have contract situations and the microphones are in their face, how many times are they asked about it? And how many times are their teammates asked about it? That sort of thing. So I never really thought of it as maybe the team wants it that way, but you may be onto a point like, man, we just, we want to get this done. We'd love to have him here, but in a way, maybe it's best so that players aren't asked about him. He's not here having to show his visible frustration, if that's the case, that sort of thing. So maybe there is good with the bad in this situation.
I wasn't even kind of going that way, but I can see your point. Like, I think the Bengals just don't like they can want Trey there and they can want all this to go away, but they don't want it enough to just pay him the number that he wants. And it's never going to be that way, right? It's always pulling teeth with this team. And until there is an agent that can communicate with them in the way that they want, which is clearly what Rocky Arsenault was able to do, and he was able to utilize his own leverage when combining two players' contracts into this. Until that happens, it seems like progress is going to be very minimal here until there's a deadline at stake, right? Like, deadlines almost pushed the Jamar Chase deal into the end zone last year, right? It was just Chase who ended up deciding to bet on himself. That's not going to be the case with Hendrickson, I don't believe. Like, he's just got far too much to lose for that to happen. So, the deadline is probably going to be a lot sooner than week 1 of the regular season. But again, I think the Bengals are fine right now of just holding their own and not giving in to Trey's demands up until, you were alluding to, it will become a distraction if this does bleed into camp. And at that point, there might be some more urgency on their side.
Well, we're going to get to make or break players in just a second. And I think, again, for a good segue, we have a super chat we're going to get to in just a second. Want to remind folks to get this show on the Believe in Cincy podcast channel through your favorite audio streamer, whether that is iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all the major ones. We are there. You got to go to Believe in Cincy, BLEAV in Cincy, and subscribe, leave us a review. The old Cincy Jungle feed is defunct right now. So if you are still expecting shows to be uploaded there, they are not. All of our new episodes are on the Believe in Cincy podcast channel. And of course, if you like the video side of stuff, we stream live on our YouTube channel. We put the 3 and Out stuff on there as well with Jason and Kevin. And then we do some extra videos there. So you got to subscribe there to check those out. Members get first views at exclusive videos on the YouTube channel. You got to go to Cincy Jungle's Facebook page as well to see not only all the videos and the articles that we post there, but all the information that we have there. And then, of course, keep it to cincyjungle.com and A to Z Sports with John Sheeran covering the Bengals and the AFC North, doing a fantastic job there. So get your Bengals fix in all those different ways. We appreciate all the support you've shown this program for a long, long time, too long to count almost at this point. But we're going to get to make or break players in just a second. But of course, Mr. Generosity stepping up to the plate once again. This is a somewhat good segue to one of the players we're going to talk about. One of the players in there is named for our make or break, our first make or break. We'll get to in a second. Thoughts on right guard. Obviously, it is a vacated spot. One name he did not mention, you see, Fairchild, Rivers, Patrick, Volson, Ford is still in that mix as well, potentially. So, do you have a favorite at this point? I mean, not a John Sheeran favorite, but the favorite in the Bengals' eyes right now for the starting right guard job now that Alex Kappa is a Raider.
I would say Lucas Patrick is the favorite, just because they know who Ford is at left guard, or at least he played there more than right guard. That's where Volson has played all of his NFL snaps, even though he played a lot on the right side in college. Dylan Fairchild was tabbed as a left guard when they drafted him, and that's where he is said to be competing. And I think Jalen Rivers at this point in time is going to take reps at tackle first, and then they could see what he has at guard. I think that would be great in terms of getting potentially the best 5 out there. But if I were to guess, he's going to get snaps at tackle first, and then maybe an opportunity at guard later in case some injuries pop up, or maybe he'll just be all over the line, right? And then he's just kind of just a positionless offensive lineman. So Lucas Patrick being the guy that they actually signed from another team in free agency with that hole at right guard, I think he fits the best out of this group, having played it in the past. Actually has been a couple of years. I thought he played a little bit of right guard last year, but it was mostly left guard for the New Orleans Saints. So it had been a couple of years since he played right guard, but he does have experience there, and it is where some of his decent tape is. So I think, assuming that or just him being the one guy that they signed outside of this team, and all these other options have been known at left guard, I would say that he's probably the favorite right now to be the right guard, unless Cody Ford has improved dramatically and he's getting snaps there as well.
Is that John Sheeran's favorite? Does that coincide with the option there as the favorite?
I would say Jalen Rivers would be John Sheeran's favorite, just because I think there's just a better chance that he's more solid compared to these guys who are basically known products, and their ceiling is rather limited. But Lucas Patrick is not at the bottom of John Sheeran's list, if you will.
Okay. I'm with you. I think right now Patrick has the upper hand. I would have my favorite also being Rivers, but I think the Rivers experiment, if you will, may take a year before you say okay, or maybe you start with Patrick and it's okay, it's staying afloat, but you think you're seeing enough out of Rivers that he can come in and get that spot middle to late in the season. I think Rivers is going to be a pretty valuable Swiss Army knife guy on that line. But right now, I think you're right. I think Patrick's best film is at right guard, or has been at right guard. And he's probably in line to start right now, for better or for worse. Maybe they give Rivers a shot. And then, of course, you got Fairchild, Volson duking it out at left guard. And then we'll see what happens with Ford. Maybe he's just kind of another utility guy all over the line as well that they keep. But that brings us to our first, thank you, Mr. Generosity, by the way, our first make or break player. And since you chose this one, John Sheeran, I am going to let you kick this one off with him. Obviously, a guy that has come under a lot of scrutiny. I think a lot of people had hope, in years 2 and 3 that he was going to take that next leap. He did not. And so now the Bengals drafted a 3rd-round guy. Volson himself was a 4th-round guy, so they love those mid-round guys for guard spots. But right now, Volson, who has had the stranglehold on the starting spot, his footing is not on the most solid of ground, I would say.
That's probably an understatement, I think, with Cordell Volson. And I mean, he is like a prime example of why I think it's so important for rational expectations to be had on guys who are just entering the league, who were drafted at certain spots, who are certain players in college, right? Volson, when he entered the league in 2022, there was promise that, hey, this guy who's really powerful, played at a really powerful program, at least at the FCS level in North Dakota State. And Jackson Carman, obviously the guy that he was competing against the left guard, he hadn't proven anything, and he was clearly underwhelming compared to his pedigree. So there's a lot of promise when he was a rookie, and then he just asserted himself and became the starter. And I think that kind of ascension in just a year, it really altered the expectations of who Cordell Volson could be. But at the end of the day, he was still a guy that was projected to be drafted a lot later than the 4th round, but the Bengals really keyed in on him because of a lot of intangible reasons, and I think those intangible reasons have proven to be correct. But work ethic and character can only get you so far if you can't withstand a bull rush, and you can't play with good leverage, you can't play with good hand usage, and that's been a problem for Volson for the last 3 years. That's why he's been a liability for the better part of the last 3 years. But they haven't added any real assets to give him any sort of competition. Jackson Carman was his only competition in 2022, and as we've seen, that just hardly is anything. So now that you're entering year 4, and he's played so much that the Bengals can't control this, but his pay is now increased to a little under $4 million this year because of how many snaps that he's played over the first 3 years. And that is a great program that the NFL does for players who are drafted, later in the draft, and they kind of exceed in terms of playing time relative to their draft positioning. So kudos to Volson for staying on the field, staying healthy, being durable as a starter and earning that pay bonus. But it ultimately might come back to haunt him, because if the Bengals, who clearly are asking guys to take less money in terms of how they view them as players and maybe lesser roles, if Volson doesn't win the starting left guard job, or if he doesn't win the starting right guard job, if he's a backup by the end of training camp in the preseason, are they going to look at his salary cap hit of $4 million, nearly $4 million? And are they going to pay that for someone coming off the bench on the offensive line, a position group that they don't normally pay backups a substantial amount of money? I really don't think so. And considering the fact that there's a new offensive line coach here, Scott Pierce is going to do what he can to improve the hand usage and the technique and the overall technical process of Volson as a player. He's going to do what he can in these next few months, but I would say he's on the outside looking in to be a starter because of how much competition, relative to the Bengals standards, competition for Volson. And if he doesn't beat out that competition, he's looking like a really expensive backup for someone who just hasn't improved the way that they wanted him to improve over the past couple of years. So if he doesn't become a starter, he's probably a guy that they're going to look to trade along the lines of roster cutdown, or maybe just a guy that they waive altogether. So he is one of the ultimate make or break players for the Bengals. He's either a starter and proves people wrong this offseason, or he's probably off the team.
It's funny because when we started this series last week, we told you how it spawned from the potential breakout players list that we annually do. And it seemed like he was annually on that list. He's going to take that next step. He's going to take that next step. And it never really happened, between, like you said, withstanding bull rushes, the interior of the offensive line, namely the guards having issues with stunts and twists and that sort of thing from other defensive linemen. It's been an issue. And it's no secret that this guy, Cordell Volson, was a Frank Pollock guy. And so, I think the coaching staff turnover, particularly at the offensive line spots, that this plays right into the questions with Cordell Volson's future with the Bengals. And like you said, that he would be an expensive backup should he not win the left guard spot. The Bengals seem to be completely enamored with Dylan Fairchild, so much so that, he was drafted maybe a round or so earlier than most projected, but they seem to be pretty ecstatic that they got that guy. And it sounded like when they drafted him, he's going to have every opportunity to win that left guard spot over Cordell Volson going forward. So I'm with you on this. I like you said, I like the character. I like the work ethic. I like the story of, small school guy that was a powerhouse small school, makes it to the big leagues. And you would have liked to have seen him take that next step in his NFL career, but it just hasn't happened. And it hasn't happened whether they flank him with, Ted Karras, solid veteran at center, Orlando Brown at left tackle, whatever the case may be, to steady his play. It just hasn't happened. So like you said, time is running out, new coach. And if the coach isn't overly enamored with what he sees from his, entrenched starter at that spot, I don't know that there's a spot for him.
And I want to reiterate that I think that Cordell Volson is one of their 9 best offensive linemen on this team. And it's not an indictment on the rest of the offensive line. I think that Volson has value as someone that you can bring off the bench in a pinch, or as someone who could do what Matt Lee did last year and be the extra offensive lineman attached to the end. He has that length. He has the athleticism as a run blocker to kind of, work well in those packages. Like, I think that would be a great role for him. Unfortunately, again, I think his own benefit in terms of like his salary being raised, I think that works against him. Like, I just don't know how confident I would be in the Bengals keeping him as someone coming off the bench, even if at that point, like, you're not saving money for any practical reason, right? But the Bengals don't really make these decisions necessarily to make other moves. They would rather just value guys at a certain rate. And if you don't have the value that matches up with what your contract says, they will make a decision for you. And that's what they did with Zach Moss. That's what they did with Gino Stone. That's what they did with Joe Mixon. It's what they might do with Cordell Volson if he doesn't provide value as a starter. So again, like, I'm not saying that Volson should be off the team entirely. I think there's value for him as a backup, but if he was making like $2 million or $1.5 million, I think he would be very safe. But because he's not, like, this is the Bengals. Like, I'm just kind of trying to read the terrain here.
And it's a position that they do not value. I don't know how many times we've said this on this show. They just don't value it. And if you're not making the money that's owed to you, or if you're not, I mean, they had expected him to be, a pretty solid starter at this point, I think. And it's been up and down at best. So make or break year for Cordell Volson. And again, like the guy, somewhat like the potential, and he was a tackle in college and that sort of thing, but it just hasn't come to fruition. We go to an interesting guy next for the second make or break player, and a guy that you see on our opening and closing show credits, and a guy we really like, again, as a player too, but as a guy. He was very friendly, very cordial when he joined the team and joined the program. Cam Taylor-Britt has gone from ascending rookie to near Pro Bowl play in 2023, got hurt, and then all of a sudden last year it completely fell off a cliff. You had him benched, I think, at certain points. Against the Chargers, that was a game he was benched, and a couple of other times you're like, oh boy, he's not on the field here. And, there are some people that said, he had some other stuff happening in his personal life, maybe that maybe has, distracted him, that sort of thing. It happens, sometimes your personal life detracts from your professional life. We've all probably had that happen in one form or another. I don't want to speak for him. I don't even know how valid that is, but those are some of the rumors that are at least swirling around about Cam Taylor-Britt. But the fall from grace here is pretty crazy, John. Again, when he's making those diving catches, diving interceptions against the Seahawks, and great play against the Chiefs, that sort of thing, you're like, hey, this is the next good corner that the Bengals have drafted, and he's got a bright future ahead. And then last year happens, and you go, what the hell happened? What happened here? And he looked lost on double moves. He was beaten deep a couple of times. The not so great safety play for most of the year also didn't help things. You had DJ Turner in and out of the lineup with injuries and that sort of thing. It was just a mess last year. And so now when you look at it, you go, okay, which Cam Taylor-Britt is going to show up this year? Is it going to be the guy that we saw in 2023 that was making all these great plays? Or is it going to be the guy that kind of seemed to be in Lou Anarumo's doghouse for most of last year? I don't really know. If I'm reading the tea leaves, if I'm reading the comments from guys like Joseph Osai and others when they rejoined the team this year, and it was kind of veiled shots at Lou Anarumo, it makes me a little bit optimistic that things will turn around for Cam Taylor-Britt. But at this point, it's really a question mark. And again, the Bengals showed a lot of faith in him because they did not invest heavily at the defensive back spot in general in free agency or the draft. And so now you go, okay, what's next for this guy? They seem to be pretty invested in DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt as their corners. They like what they saw for the most part in Josh Newton last year. He's probably going to be a nickel back, dime back type of guy. So now you got Taylor-Britt. The Steelers now have DK Metcalf. Yes, they traded George Pickens away to the Cowboys, but DK Metcalf, there's history there with Cam Taylor-Britt and Metcalf. And you've got, Cleveland's been a bit of a problem, a thorn in the side for the Bengals last year, not really withstanding. And then, of course, Baltimore's put up points galore against the Bengals. So this is a big year for him as well in his career, whether he ends up, sticking long-term with the Cincinnati Bengals, becoming a solid, dependable corner, or if things are going to continue to deteriorate as they did last year.
He's such an interesting case because we all know the history with Lou Anarumo and rookies and young players in general. And for him to play as a rookie when called upon, like injuries kind of forced him on the field in the middle of 2022, which should be a Wuzier going down. But for him to kind of adapt as quickly as he did in a defense where young guys notoriously can't really adapt and get up to speed as quickly as they need to, for him to impress as a rookie under Anarumo was very eye-opening. I guess in retrospect, looking back, And then to build on that in 2023, when you mentioned obviously the safety play has not been good last year or 2023, like he was still one of their best players on defense in 2023, a bad defense, I should say, but still looked the part and still looked to be ascending. And that's what makes 2024 as perplexing as it was. And you have to assume that it wasn't necessarily a lack of fit, but it was a lot of distractions. It was a lot of maybe things on his side of the situation where he just wasn't as locked in as he needed to be. And maybe being benched twice in 11 weeks really kind of set him on the right path, because he did play better along with a lot of other players on defense. He did play a lot better in that final month of the season when, things started to change and there was kind of more of an uprising with the players and whatnot. So it's such a weird career arc, especially knowing the context of this previous coaching staff on that side of the ball. And for him to play as well as he did as a young player, it all makes it very weird. But I think in general, the switch to Al Golden's defense, which is going to be a lot more aggressive, it's going to be a lot more man coverage, I think that fits his profile a lot better.
Agreed.
Because like you said, not the best off coverage guy, not the best just dropping back into zone, just really good in terms of just staying with guys with his 4.3 speed, staying in the hip pocket, using his physicality. You'd like to see him be better against the run as well. I think that's where he shined a lot as a rookie, and it's kind of been kind of downhill ever since, but that's part of just kind of him just taking it seriously, right? There's nothing physically that he can't do within this defense, which is why he's going to be relied on. Even if he doesn't start, there's always going to be snaps to be had as like the fourth cornerback in the secondary. You see injuries happen every single year at the position. So whether or not he starts week one, he's going to be on the field. He's going to have his chance to prove himself, and prove himself he needs to, because cornerbacks can still get paid a lot, and he's still only 25 years old. He's going to be 26 in the middle of the season. So there's a chance for him to really make a case either for the Bengals or any other team that he's worth a hefty second contract, because guys who are that big with those ball skills, like, they're still really valuable. He just has to really just put it all together for a contract year. And we've seen in years past that contract years are all it takes for guys to really perform their best.
Already entering his fourth year, right? And there's been lots of twists and turns to his career, and high hopes for him for a while. And like you said, I mean, in Al Golden, we have to trust, and hopefully that this system and the old, let them rely on their instincts and not think too much type of thing. Maybe that's, I mean, how true that is, we'll see, but maybe that is what Golden's going to try and instill into this defense. And if so, I think Taylor-Britt, given his athletic background, he had a high RAS score, like you said, good speed. He's physical. He likes to do the, get his hands on you and get in. I mean, that's what frustrated Metcalf when they faced off. He was getting in on him, and he didn't like that. So when he's playing like that, he's one of the better corners in the league. When he is either thinking too much or head's not in the game or whatever the case may be, it's not good. Now, again, with the hopeful solidifying of other supporting cast members, now the safety group is going to be largely the same, unless, like you said, they take that Gino Stone money that they saved and maybe go put that in another player at the safety position. But again, you hope things solidify with Knight in the lineup. You got Burks. You have, the Barrett kid from Clemson and that sort of thing. Hopefully your pass rush on the other side of Trey Hendrickson, hopefully everything works out with Trey Hendrickson. But, when you have this rotation of guys now, and Stewart and Osai and, Sample and all these guys, hopefully that produces some more opportunities for Taylor-Britt to kind of have a little more confidence in himself and have confidence in what the other players are doing out there. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. I really, really like this guy. I've liked him since day one, but again, last year was just really, really rough, and I hope he can turn a corner.
A lot of moving pieces is an understatement. It's not just the schematic changes. It's also the personnel changes. It's also, like you said, hoping that a better pass rush can make the lives of these cornerbacks a lot easier, especially due to the fact that they're going to be playing an uptick in man coverage. And, I think a lot has been said about the differences between what Anarumo did and what Al Golden is going to do. I think kind of lensing from what the players have said, it's more or less like it was just too confusing in terms of when offenses were kind of in these pre-snap motions, and then you're confused about what your coverage rules are. So like maybe in pre-snap it's one thing, and then post-snap it's another. That's how you get so many coverage breakdowns, right? It's not just the post-snap communication. It's also just like, what are we supposed to do? And that clearly seemed to be too much. And I think it affected Taylor-Britt more than most players on that defense. So when you just have him in a scheme where he can just play relaxed, just focus on the guy in front of him, get your eyes turned back to the ball, like that's where he can shine. And that's why there could be a situation where, again, he may not start week 1, but he may prove to be the better option as the season goes on. And that would be great for him entering a very pivotal year.
Pivotal year, most definitely. And that is our second make or break player of the episode, 4th overall. If you like that series, we'll kind of keep continuing it. Hopefully look, when we do this, I don't want this to be always cast in a negative light on these players, right? I mean, I think when you say make or break, it's like, oh, pressure's on, you better perform. And yeah, that is true with what we're talking about. But, it's not like we're hoping for these players to fail or that sort of thing. There have been glimpses, I think, for a lot of these guys. There have been glimpses of good play. And you go, okay, can you just be consistent? Can you keep it steady throughout the entirety of a season? And that's where the entire unit will improve, especially when we've done mostly defense to this point. I think 3 of the 4 guys, right, have been defense. So, that's kind of where our mindset is. But we're going to drop the mic and get on out of here for a slightly abbreviated episode. John Sheeran, now that your power is back on in your domicile, what do you have for us on the way out of the door?
Yeah, I was talking to Anthony earlier. I had maintenance done in my apartment for like 3 hours this morning, and not the best start to the day. Couldn't get a lot of work done, but that's why, doing these shows at night, it's a great opportunity to end the show on a high note, because even if we do have some audio issues every now and then, maybe our production is not at the level of other podcasts, right? I hope that everyone who tunes in not because of the quality, but because they like us. They like what we have to say, right? They like the camaraderie that we have. We like the community that we've created. And that is certainly why I come on here every single week, along with talking with Anthony, but all of you guys tuning in and putting up with our hijinks and our inconsistencies. That is the quality of the show at heart, and it's why we keep coming back. So I appreciate you guys continuing to tune in and dealing with us. It certainly makes the end of my days a lot better.
Well, I don't know how to even, top that, but there's one smart guy on the show and one guy who provides most of the hijinks on the show, one dopey guy. And you saw me point at each guy there. So, well said. And, Pastor Dave Hammond left us a nice note there that we pinned on the show. Appreciate that, and appreciate everybody always tuning in. Mr. Whisper, all of your generosity in particular, and many others. We appreciate it. We're going to start getting some more special guests here. Obviously, a little lull in the NFL calendar. I mean, some stuff's going on, but next week's another big step. You've got the schedule release next week, so we'll be live to talk about that next week as well, and a lot of other things coming up. But we'll be getting some more special guests and different things there too. But I can't really build much more off of that. That's very well said. We appreciate all of you. Thanks for tuning in live. Thanks for tuning in after the fact. Get it on your favorite platform. Keep it to cincyjungle.com and A to Z Sports, where John Sheeran is covering the Bengals in the AFC North. We appreciate all of you very, very much. It's not make or break for you all, right? I mean, we love all of you. Appreciate it. And we will see you all soon. John, take care. Hopefully the power doesn't go out on you again here anytime soon, but appreciate everything, man.
Lights are shining bright. Talk to you guys later.